For reaction now, let's speak to the South African National Civic Organization's Donovan Williams. Donovan, good to have you once again tonight here on In Focus. It's a bit tricky of a situation now because, of course, we don't have a draft signed letter. It's merely a draft that has been leaked. But if certainly what is contained in this draft is true, what's the reaction from Sanco on the actions of the NDC to suspend former President Jacob Zuma?
Look, Tabo, good evening, and evening to the viewers as well. Look, whichever decision the ANC, the African National Congress, had chosen to make, as Sanco, we would have supported it. It's a matter of discipline and instilling discipline within their own respective organization, and we would have been respectful of that. And as you indicate, this letter is a draft. It's doing the rounds on social media, as all of us know, and as well as yourselves. And for all intents and purposes, though, quite logically, I think we would have expected it. I mean, it's clear. It's actually quite common sense. The former president has not just disrespected the organization, has not just shown the ANC no loyalty. He was the face of a different political party before the elections. He canvassed and campaigned for that party. It was clear that if he would have been allowed to be in parliament, he would have for a different party. He continues to lead that political party. And from time to time, you have seen announcements on changes in the party that has come from him. So in all fairness, the ANC was left with no choice. And it was just logical. It was just common sense. And a correct decision has been made. He has not just tainted his legacy within the African National Congress. He has shown not just to be ill-disciplined, but he has shown that everything he may have been accusing others of being, he actually was projecting. He is guilty of all those. He has not shown any loyalty to the ANC, the vision for South Africa, the principles of the organization. He has shown that he seems to be just committed to himself, and which is a pity for the African National Congress because it had put a lot of faith and confidence in him, in fact, electing him as their president at a stage and putting forward his name to be the president of the country. So that it is a disappointment, but it is a necessary outcome of a disciplinary process. And we also need to be quite respectful towards the ANC. It went through what it seems to be the processes and procedures quite well, although it could have just made a statement and issued it a while back to say, well, you're part of another political party, etc. But it respected its own constitution and showed a high regard for a legal, properly constituted process.
Yeah. So you think the NDC decision itself is in keeping with the processes? For example, it cannot be challenged at a later stage. Do you think the manner, for example, in which they responded to the request of a virtual seating, the manner in which they responded to the request of a pre-hearing and so on and so forth, they didn't act in an arbitrary manner?
No, I think the ANC has been very cautious and been very respectful. Most people, and including yourself, would say that, wow, how can you continue to have anything to do with somebody who's not just campaigning, but he's the face of another political party? It's just nonsensical in many ways. So I think the ANC has been quite considered in how it has operated. It has done that in the face of possibly even ridicule, but it has kept its institutional integrity and its processes integrity. We would never know the processes of the ANC well enough. Of course, any person found guilty of any charge within the disciplinary process would be able to appeal. He may decide to appeal or not. That would be his decision. But from where we stand, and not speaking on behalf of the African National Congress, but we think the ANC has given due consideration to both the content as well as the process. And the NDC has handled the matter, from what we can gather, quite appropriately. There's nothing wrong from what we can see for a virtual disciplinary hearing. There shouldn't be anything wrong. The time given for this, etc. I think there's a lot of things that are that haven't been hurting his rights. But at the end of the day, he needs to be also honest with himself and stop playing games and stop trying to make the country as unstable that he has no loyalty or commitment to the African National Congress. So it shouldn't have even come to a disciplinary hearing. He should have resigned. He has absolutely no commitment to it. And for him to act like he has is also taking the South African public for a ride as well, not just the members of the African National Congress.
The Veterans League saying the results of this action, of course, would have been the 2 million voters that the ANC would have lost on the May 29th election. Do you think the ANC left this too late? For example, if you read that letter, it says that the ANC never, for example, sent correspondence to former President Jacob Zuma on this misconduct. So they never warned him of the misconduct, but they let this process kind of keep going until the decision of the NEC, which they then sent to him. He didn't respond to it. The 5th of May, they postponed that hearing. They said, no, let's leave it up until elections. Do you think that they left this situation go on for too long, that the damage is probably greater than what would have been if they acted earlier?
Look, it's neither here nor there now, for that matter. Why people chose not to vote for the ANC or vote for the recent creation of their former president can be a whole host of reasons, and not necessarily just around the president. It could even be confusion. And I think the veterans are correct. But the ANC itself, in terms of it rebuilding itself from that election process and the movement as a whole, I was on Newzroom Afrika on behalf of Sanco just after the elections. I think it is a moment of introspection for the movement. They need to listen to the people and not be inward looking. Introspection doesn't mean you need to be inward looking. This matter on the president or the former president is an episode that must be put to rest and be put into the rearview mirror. It needs to look forward. It needs to take into account that it's not just political games that affected the share of the vote of the ANC. Its performance in government has to improve tremendously, even in a government of national unity or not. But the ANC has to improve. The Congress movement has to improve. It has to listen to the people a lot more closely. At Sanco, we're clear about that. Our local economic development and the economic indicators on the ground has to improve. Better governance in our municipality has to improve. So it can want to center it just around the former president, but I don't think that's good enough. I think if the ANC decides to focus just on that and think that's the reason for a less than desirable elections outcome, it would be making a mistake. All in all, though, it should try to rest this episode. It's not just it's not up to itself. Jacob Zuma may decide to appeal because he would want to play that game. We've seen him do it very often. The way he uses lawfare, the ANC can't control that. All it can do is focus on the people's needs. And that's what we want. That's the ANC we want. That's the renewal we want as the South African National Civic Organization. We want improvement on the ground. Our people deserve that improvement on the ground, regardless if they're ANC members or not, but communities do. And I think this is very, very important for us. And the quicker this episode is put to rest and we move on, I think the better.
Donovan, we appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on.